Okay, so this is relationships and families and religious views on gender equality. Gender equality is the state in which men and women are treated equally and have the same rights and opportunities as each other, which is something that hasn't always happened in society and hasn't always happened in religion. So we are going to be looking at the kind of points that are made on both sides. Discrimination is when somebody is treated unfairly based upon gender, religion, or other characteristics. Prejudice is when you have ideas about somebody that you kind of have to yourself. Discrimination is when you act upon those prejudices. Metta is the Buddhist concept of loving kindness, which has been mentioned throughout these videos, as has Karuna, which is the Buddhist concept of compassion, both important keywords in order to help you out. The golden rule is mentioned in Christianity and slightly changed in Buddhism as well, which is essentially treat others as you want to be treated in Christianity and hurt not others in ways that you would find yourself hurtful in Buddhism. The suffragettes are an example that can be used as a non-religious point of view, generally speaking, in a 12 marker. The reason that I would advise against from using the suffragettes as an example in a 4 or a 6 marker is it usually asks you to explain two religious beliefs about a certain topic. So if it says explain two religious beliefs about gender equality, you can't really mention the suffragette movement, as that was a political movement that wasn't necessarily kind of rooted in religious ideas. So that is something that you can use when you discuss non-religious ideas in a 12 marker, but not so much in a 4 or a 6 marker. To start off with, that historically there have been kind of issues with representation in both Christianity and Islam when it comes to gender equality. The big one applies to both Christianity and Islam, that the founders of both religions, Jesus in Christianity and Muhammad in Islam, both male. God in both situations is believed to be without and above gender. However, both use male pronouns in order to describe him in God and Allah. And then you have got the fact that in Christianity all the disciples were male, and in Islam all the prophets were male. So therefore the roles that were given of importance to kind of people in both religions were male. So in terms of having the same rights and opportunities as gender equality, that's one of the kind of topics that can be applied to both religions. However, it is so important to recognize at this point that you can't put down that Christianity or Islam say that women have to stay at home and work, cook and clean and look after the children while the male goes to work. The reason being is that neither religion says that as a belief. So if it asks you about a belief on gender equality, you cannot say that because it doesn't work. You would have to say that Christianity and or Islam follow traditional societal gender roles, and that would be based upon potential inequality for the perceived male and female roles. It's a harder way to get marks, so I would recommend staying away from it as much as possible and using some of the quotes that we're about to go through. So from all those points is though that women have not necessarily been treated in the same way that men have historically in Christianity and Islam. You would also say in Buddhism, as women are not allowed to be monks in some groups in Buddhism, and that they only allow men to seek nirvana, which is an escape from suffering and seeing the world for as it truly is. So there is also a kind of divide between men and women there. So, with regards to quotes, you have got God created mankind in His own image. Now, even though it's mankind and His own image, the still quote is about gender equality because it implies that men and women are both equal in the eyes of God. They both come under mankind in this situation. So therefore, that's saying that because both men and women are in the image of God, they are both equal there. However, it also says, St. Paul said in the Bible, women should remain silent in church, implying that they have no role to speak in church and that they should be quiet because they have nothing to contribute, essentially. So that obviously does not promote gender equality. However, in certain kind of parts of Christianity, certain denominations, you have got people that disagree that women should be silent in church. For example, Libby Lane became the first female bishop in the Church of England in 2015, which shows progress on gender equality in the church, as she is somebody that goes against that statement from St. Paul in the Bible. However, you do have Catholicism, which is the biggest group of Christians, who do not allow priests to be women. And obviously the Pope is always a man, so you've got those there. In Islam, you have got the fact that people perceive that the roles of women are kind of different, and therefore they are not equal. Muslims would argue that just because men and women have different roles and purposes in life doesn't mean they are not equal. And that, so for example, the kind of dress that a lot of women have to wear in Islam, the Muslims would argue that that is so that people can focus on who she is and not what she looks like. And it's more about kind of a personality and what she says and things rather than it is about how she looks. Men and women are also separated in mosques. That is so that they can both focus on their prayers without any distraction. In the Hadith, which are the sayings and teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, he said, "I command you to be kind to women." So the Prophet Muhammad promoted respect and kindness towards women. And in the Hadith, it also says, "All people are equal as the teeth of the comb." Teeth of the comb would be very equal, so therefore people are. And an example that you can use in your answers is that the Prophet Muhammad taught his daughters to read and write. At the time, men did not teach their daughters to read and write. Men kind of kept the ability to read to themselves because it was something that continued to give them their power. The Dalai Lama said, "For Buddhism, my religion is simple, my religion is kindness," which kind of obviously in terms of gender equality, just be nice to people essentially it is. Doesn't matter what their gender is, just respect people and kind of treat them nice. And then the Buddha said, "The things which separate and divide people, race, religion, gender, and social position, are all illusory." Which basically means, says that the things that people see that they find divisions of all those things mentioned, it doesn't really matter. It's just an illusion. It's just something that we should see past. And then you've got the kind of groups that don't allow women to be monks there. So lots to go off. Some tasks for you to do. Look at some countries and religious contexts of where inequality is still happening. So the Catholic Church that I've mentioned, the separation of mosques as well, and the fact that not all women can become monks in Buddhism. And the social progresses, you can use the suffragettes, the Equal Pay Act, Sex Discrimination Act in the UK, and maybe have some examples of countries where they don't have that type of thing. Religious teachings that support gender equality, there are plenty on the previous slide. And 2 examples of where gender roles are still restricted in society or religious practice, also examples there. You could talk about the gender pay gap and the kind of fact that there are significantly more male CEOs than there are female CEOs and so forth. And then your opinion on whether men and women will ever have complete equality and why. For the exam questions, 2 religious beliefs about gender equality. As I said earlier on, do not talk about the suffragette movement here or any of the non-religious things. So you can't talk about the pay gap or anything. You have to talk about the specific religious beliefs about gender equality. In your answer, you must refer to the main religious tradition of Great Britain and one or more other religious traditions. So that means you have to talk about Christianity in your answer. and explain two religious views about the role of men and women in society or family life. So in there, I would also refer to other topics that we've looked at. So the role of the mother. So in kind of talking about the fact that heaven is at the feet of the mother and the importance of the mother in the family life there. And you could talk about the fact that men generally have a role in leading worship in religious things there. Then you've got religious teachings fully support gender equality. So you would have all of the ones that promote equality, like love thy neighbour doesn't say love thy male neighbour or female neighbour and so forth. It's about that. And then you've got all the other teachings which show that men and women are not necessarily as equal, and you'd use those answers there for that one. But there's lots to go on there, but it's important that you stay away from the mistakes that people make in this topic, which is first, you can't say that the Christianity or Islam believe that men should go to work and women should stay at home and look after the children, because that's not fair. It's important to recognise as well that you can talk about the inequality between men and women with regards to kind of the social interaction with regards to male mental health and that aspect. And it's not just kind of social inequality towards women, and that you can do that. But historically, in terms of gender equality from a religious standpoint, it is definitely weighted significantly more towards men in that setting. So that is relationships and families on gender equality.